What's up, guys? Today we're going over the new Hunter exotic, the Mask of Fealty, and this helmet is pretty good. It's currently bugged, but not in a major way, and there's a great synergy build for stasis with this helmet. So this video we're going to check out what this exotic does and that build. So this helmet is all about Withering Blades. Null factor, Withering Blade hits and bounces create a small stasis crystal and refund a portion of melee energy. Using Withering Blade to shatter crystals or frozen targets releases a spread of Withering Blades. So the first thing this exotic will do is return energy on hits and bounces. It's roughly like 10 to 15-ish%. It might be dependent on your melee stat. But we're going to have no issue with infinite melees in this build. And the second part is when you shatter a frozen target or a crystal with the Withering Blade, it will send out a group of even more Withering Blades, which will then go and bounce and hit other targets. And the bug currently with this that will be fixed later in the month is that when you shatter a frozen target, it's not consistent of sending out the group of Withering Blades, but on crystals it's 100% consistent. So it doesn't not work on frozen targets, it's just not consistent. And overall, if you've heard about this bug and you're like, I might just wait until it's fixed to try out this exotic, I would not recommend doing that. It still feels great, and more often than not, it definitely works. So jumping into the build, we have Grim Harvest, stasis shards when we defeat slowed or frozen targets. And also, while Grim Harvest is equipped, we will get Frost Armor stacks from picking up these shards. Then I'm using Winter Shroud for the ability to make our dodge slow. And when we slow targets, it'll briefly increase our class ability regeneration. And with that, I have Game Over Dodge to refresh our melee ability when we dodge near enemies. Then grenade choice, you can kind of use wherever you want. I have Glacial Grenade to create more crystals and like a burst damage grenade. Now fragments, we have Fissures to increase the damage and the radius of the shatters. Then we have Rhyme to increase the duration and maximum stacks of our Frost Armor. Then we have Reversal, so that when we have Frost Armor, our melee damage will also slow the target. Conduction to make it so our shards track towards us. And then finally, Hunger to get more melee energy when we pick up these shards. And there's a cool interaction with Reversal, and the reason I'm using it in this build is your Withering Blade normally just slows targets on hits, but with this fragment on top of that, it will actually instantly freeze any target you hit with your Withering Blades, which then means it will shatter them at the same time, and in theory create that spread of extra Withering Blades from the exotic. And every single frozen target or crystal you destroy will create shards. So shards will track towards you. You get a huge chunk of melee energy back on every pickup. And just with that alone, you basically already have infinite melee abilities. Then if you do run out of a melee charge, you have your dodge. Your dodge will refresh one Withering Blade. And you'll get your dodge quite often with this build because things will constantly be slowed. And some of our armor mods. So moving on to those. First on our helmet, we have Hands On, then a Stasis Siphon. I'm running a Special Ammo Finder. Then we have Focusing Strike to help get our class ability back. Then Heavy Handed to create orbs and Melee Kickstart, which Melee Kickstart doesn't usually actually proc and consume your charges on Withering Blades, but it will still give you a chunk back just by default. So I still think it's worth using. Then we have Charged Up, whatever reserves you want, and Resist. Then I have an Absolution and a Stacks on Stacks. And for the weapons I have on in this build, I'm using Special Finisher. Then I have Distribution and a Outreach. And moving on to those weapons, I have the Ager's Scepter. And this thing is a beast and works really well with this build to be able to slow and freeze targets. And that just means more shards. And the way I use it is to really get the full benefit of the exotic. You want stuff to be already frozen before you throw your Withering Blades. So I just will kill like one red bar and that will freeze the group. Throw my Withering Blade at it, that will create even more, and before you know it, they're just going all over the place, freezing and shattering everything, creating all these shards, and you basically get your entire melee back just from using it. And I really like the Ager's Scepter because of the ability to consume our super, and the Stasis Hunter super isn't great, so I'd rather just use the Scepter, which works really well on champions. When I was using it in Onslaught, this build has obviously built-in slow and shattering like crazy, so you can definitely handle Overload and Unstoppable very easily, and just convert your super, kill the champion, then stop it. And usually you want to use like 20% of your super. You'll get it back very quickly with Hands On, and it'll be ready to go for the next champion, boss, wherever it is. You could also use the Wicked Implement, which is all about creating shards. Also, if you have the Catalyst, it's also Headstone, which will feed into this build even more. If you were going this route, I would change off one of my fragments to Rending to make it so it can one-hit all of the crystals. If you have the Catalyst with Headstone, there's going to be crystals all over the place. And I think this version of the build probably has a little bit more uptime on your melee, just because there's going to be more shards being created and picked up. But overall, both are very good. Just really depending on what you want. And the rest of the weapons on this build is obviously kind of wherever you want. Using the Agers, obviously running a primary. If not, run a special with a Wicked Implement, then heavy slot, like usual, whatever. Then finally, looking at our artifact mods. If you're using the Wicked Implement, you can use Anti-Barrier Scout, which I heard is bugged. Hopefully that gets fixed at some point. We have all of these stasis ones pretty much unlocked. One with Frost to give all of our stasis weapon stats. We have Wind Chill to get more stacks of Frost armor. Then when we pick up all of these stasis shards, we'll get the ability for our melee to create crystals. Just another way to create even more crystals with this build. I have Healthy Storm. Another way to slow targets when we shatter those stasis crystals. And finally, I unlocked the Serve Cold. When we pick up the stasis shards, we'll get even more class ability energy. Another thing feeding into our infinite melee loop. So overall, this build is great for ad clear and ad control. Once again, another thing that is exactly what you want for Onslaught and the seasonal farm. So definitely try out this exotic and build once you get it unlocked. And even though it is currently bugged, it's not a huge bug that makes it not usable. It'll just feel even better once it does get fixed. But overall, it's just a really fun loop of the infinite melees that just kind of do a little bit of everything. And then with the Aegir Scepter, you have a very high-powered weapon for champions, bosses, wherever it is. And overall, just really fun. Anyways, there might be some gameplay left. Like usual, thanks for watching. Catch you guys next time.